which is really good for 10 p.m. on the East.
Yeah. I know. I'm so impressed. So, I can't believe. I know the lighting's probably bad, but I'm actually doing this from the cab of my car. But God, what persistence we've gone through to make communications tonight. So, it really is nothing short of censorship, I think, with Facebook, the way that went down. And the reason I say that is because the message that I'm talking about is nonpartisan. It is not Republican. It's not Democrat. It is not, it is not even, it's not anti-Islamic. In fact, it cautions, the message that I have cautions about overreacting to this thing, or not even overreacting, but reacting, hyper-indexing in a way that is anti-Islamic. That actually is what they want, and we'll talk more about that. But it's just ironic that when pragmatic, practical speech tries to come out on this, when calmer voices, cooler heads try to come out and use social media to actually do right, we get censored. I just, and guess what? Guess who's going to be going on CNN and Fox News talking about that real soon? That'll be me. So get ready. That one's coming. I wasn't going to go on national media until tonight, but yeah, Daddy's going on national media now, because that is unconscionable that our country would allow that to happen on a social media platform. So anyway, enough of that little rant. Summer and Chad, you guys are incredible patriots for making this happen. And for those of you that are still up tonight, cool. We're going to talk about what we were going to talk about tonight on Facebook, which was how we can see the enemy for who they are. And then also, this will be recorded and posted, I'm sure. And then we also have a podcast coming up tomorrow that'll go even deeper on this, for those that want to go deeper. So what I've done here is I've actually taken some notes. We were at my son's graduation celebration dinner tonight. So I took notes on the kiddie menu. This is the kid menu. So once I ordered my mac and cheese from the kid menu, I took my notes on here. And so we got to be able to laugh a little bit. But here's the deal. Islamist violent extremists, this is what I was talking about tonight. People ask all the time, like, why should I care? I will tell you, and this is what I've traveled around the country talking about. I've been looking at this problem for damn near 6 years now, nonstop. 5,500 interviews with my book. I've operated in most of the places where these guys set up shop and worked with all of the three-letter agencies that deal with these guys. And I will tell you unequivocally that Islamist violent extremists, individual or groups that project violence or threaten violence on those that don't subscribe to their radical view of Islam, are the greatest threat that America faces today. Within that broad categorization of what I call, again, Islamist violent extremists, not Islamic, Islamist, within that broad category, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, ISIS, the Islamic State is by far the most dangerous of all of those Islamist violent extremist groups. The reason for that is pretty simple. And whenever I evaluate an enemy, and I encourage all of you watching this to do the same, if you're going to evaluate a threat in your life, whether it is, whether it's a threat that is a threat to your family or, to your personal life. Can you guys still hear me okay, Chad and Summer? You guys, can you hear me okay? Cool. If you're evaluating a threat, or if you're evaluating a terror threat or anything else, I always encourage people to look at two things: will and capacity. Will and capacity. What is the will of your enemy? What is the capacity of your enemy? Let's pull that apart a little bit. First of all, let's look at the will of the Islamic State. These guys have an ideological commitment to the apocalypse. Now, I know some of you are hearing that for the first time. You're like, what did he just say? The apocalypse, what? Wasn't that in a movie? No. These guys actually believe that they are going to usher in the end of days, Judgment Day. All right? The biblical vision that you have of Judgment Day would be pretty close to that. I'll further explain it in a second. But basically, there is an Islamic prophecy that essentially says, to paraphrase, that an epic battle will occur in Syria, Dabiq, Syria, to be exact. And in this epic battle, the banners of 80 infidel, my light just went off here. excuse me, the banners of 80 infidel Christian nations will, can you guys see me now? This is unbelievable. This is like broadcasting from Afghanistan. The banners of 80 nations will come together, crusaders fighting against the Islamic holy warriors. And this narrative, and in the final hours of that battle, guys, in Dabiq, Syria, the crusaders, that's us, will have the upper hand. And right in those final hours, the prophet will return to earth. He will smoke down the crusaders, and the righteous mujahideen, the holy warriors of Islam, will be returned to heaven. That's the prophecy. Al-Qaeda believes in it. Taliban believes in it. Boko Haram believes in it. ISIS sure as hell believes in it. But here's the difference, right? Al-Qaeda under Osama bin Laden never really thought, never really believed that they would actually pull that off. They never really subscribed to the notion that that would happen in their lifetime. Part of that prophecy, too, is that this thing called the caliphate would be established. You guys have probably heard of the caliphate. You've heard that mentioned. What that basically means is it's just a large landmass in Iraq and Syria that is the holy land of Islam, and it is the lily pad or jumping off point for which this end of days occurs. And the caliphate, the reestablishment of the caliphate that frankly was dismantled after the Ottoman Empire was dismantled. That reestablishment of the caliphate in Iraq and Syria would be an indicator that the end of days was near. Now, Al-Qaeda, bin Laden never thought they would pull that off. They just knew that their job was to start the war with the far Satan, that's us, the near Satan, that's Israel, and the apostate governments, the secular governments of Iraq and Jordan, to get it started, get it going, get it moving. And then somewhere way down the line, their great-great-great-grandchildren would see the establishment of the caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and eventually the return of the prophet. And they also believed that they would have to work, they are Sunni, these are mostly Sunni Muslims. They would have to work with the Shia Muslims, who are mostly Persians from Iran and who have a slightly different view of who the prophet's descendants are. If you ever hear Shia Sunni, that's kind of that's the in general, that's the split. But they, Al-Qaeda felt like they would need to work with the Shia and other Muslims to unite and fight against the infidels to one day bring about this end of days. All right. Let's get now to the will of ISIS. ISIS doesn't subscribe to that notion at all. They believe in that same prophecy, but they believe that this prophecy will come true on their watch. In our lifetime, the end of days will occur. In our lifetime, in your lifetime, as you watch this, the prophet will return to earth, and an epic holy war will take place in Dabiq, Syria, and the entire crusader infidel nation states will be wiped from the face of the earth on their watch. Let me say that again. And so that's the difference. And I'm not talking about like a few crazy fighters believe this. I'm talking about ISIS believes this all the way up till their highest guy, al-Baghdadi, who is the caliph of ISIS. That is who Mateen swore allegiance to in his 911 call before he went and shot that club up. He swore allegiance to the caliph, al-Baghdadi. All right. And again, ISIS believes that their job on this earth is to establish the caliphate, which they've already done, by the way. When they swept through northern Iraq, a couple of years ago, and everybody was like, oh, look, a new terror group. Yeah, well, what the first thing they did was knock down the border between Syria and Iraq, and they declared that the caliphate was established, and the prophecy was coming true, and people from all over the Islamic world were threw out cheers for that. America paid no heed to it at all. No heed to it all. Didn't even pay any attention to it when ISIS told us the caliphate is established. We weren't even tracking it, and this was probably 2 years ago. Once they established the caliphate in Iraq and Syria, they started moving toward realization of this end of days prophecy. Even their magazine, if you look up ISIS's magazine, their glossy little pretty magazine that they distribute to terrorists all over the world, guess what it's called? Dabiq. The name of their magazine is Dabiq. Guess where the final epic manufactured holy war battle takes place? Yep, you guessed it, sports fans, Dabiq. So these guys are fully on board, ideologically committed that they will usher in the end of days. They will. It is an apocalyptic mindset. That is why they set people on fire on YouTube. That's why they cut heads off. That's why they can have sex slaves. That's why they can sell the organs of live people. Because guess what? Anything goes in the apocalypse. Anything goes when the end of days is at hand, especially if it's against the infidels and the crusaders. Now, I'm not saying this as incendiary remarks, ladies and gentlemen. These are their words. These are their statements. If you look at their fatwas that they issue, their religious edicts, if you look at what's coming out of their propaganda films from their Al Hayat media agency, you can Google them, and they will tell you in clear English what it is that they're doing. The problem is our mainstream media, for the most part, doesn't pick up on it, doesn't put it out there. But make no mistake, these guys fully believe in the end of days. Now, if you want to see this for yourself, on the show notes for tomorrow's podcast, or you can go, as soon as we're done here tonight, you can Google something. It's called No Respite, RESPITE. Google it. Watch it. It's November 24th, ISIS propaganda. Type all that in. No Respite, November 24th, ISIS propaganda. This was right before Paris. This was right before San Bernardino. They tell you in perfect English exactly what they're going to do. And so just watch it yourself. It's from their media agency, right? You never see this on mainstream media, but you'll watch this and you will get a sense of their ideological commitment to this end of days scenario. Now, why does that matter? Okay, that's will. Remember what now imagine going up against an enemy that has that kind of fervent belief in something. Their life on this earth means very little. Their life after they leave this earth means everything. Everything. And this notion of doing something much bigger than themselves, of serving the realization of the caliphate and the restoration of Islam to its greatness, and literally the fulfillment of a prophecy. They can take these young men and women from around the world who are struggling without meaning in their lives. They're just struggling. And they can add meaning to their lives that is almost unfathomable to you and me. They can travel to the caliphate and they can be part of something so big that they'll be remembered forever. It'll be epic. And watch how the media, the savvy media experts of ISIS do this. And they attract these young men and women from across the globe. Their followers are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. So the will of ISIS, their ideological commitment to the end of days, is unmatched anywhere in the world. Al-Qaeda doesn't even come close. So that is what their operating system is. That drives them. That is what drives a man to go in and shoot 100 people in a club by himself. That is what drives people to set Jordanian officers on fire and then film it for YouTube. Okay? So now let's talk about capacity. What kind of capacity does ISIS have? Well, they have a whole host of capacity. First of all, they're the best storytellers on the planet right now. Their storytelling capability rivals Goebbels for the Nazis in all of his propaganda. ISIS has a narrative that is so strong that they can actually set someone on fire on YouTube and then turn around and sell T-shirts on Amazon. These guys have a narrative that resonates and rings true all over the Islamic world. They're able to reach people through their digital storytelling, their social media, and even their localized storytelling in ways that we don't even comprehend. And their narrative to be part of the caliphate, part of something greater than yourself, it rings true in every dusty village, in every shanty town, in every marginalized ghetto across the world. All right, so their narrative is very, very big. We're talking capacity now. We've already talked about will. Next is they are sitting on tremendous resources. Because they established the caliphate in Iraq and in Syria, they have access to black market oil and all kinds of natural resources. And guess what else? All the donors in the world from Saudi Arabia and the other Islamic states who want to, in the shadows, write large checks to those organizations that are going to advance Sharia in the most radical way, that are going to advance into these areas. Who do you think they write their checks to? They write their checks to the most relevant organization that can demonstrate they're the baddest boys on the block. That's ISIS. So their donor capacity is enormous. The next thing that ISIS has in terms of resources is weapons. They basically confiscated every weapon system that we gave to the Iraqis when we bailed in 2011, that the Iraqis left in a vapor trail the first time that they had to stand and fight against ISIS as they swept through Mosul. So they're sitting on M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, RPG-7s, brand new M4s, all kinds of kit and arsenals that are phenomenal. They're also sitting on chemical weapons. ISIS has used mustard gas no less than 4 times in the last year against civilians in both Iraq and Afghanistan. You never see that reported in the media. It's unimaginable. It's unprecedented that a terror group has used chemical munitions 4 times against civilian targets, and no one's talking about it. But think about this for a second. With access to those kinds of weapons, chemical munitions alone, and the will and the mindset, the ideological commitment to an apocalyptic prophecy, I don't know. Do you have to really be an analyst to put that one together? Do you have to really be an analyst to wonder what they might do with a chemical munition? And then let's take a look capacity-wise at their relationships that they're establishing in Central and South America with the illicit drug traffickers where I worked for over a decade. They are there is open source reporting that ISIS is actively establishing relationships in Mexico, Central and South America, and they are tying into the illicit drug corridor that moves all kinds of product from the Andean Ridge into the United States in an overwhelming fashion. My analysis is it's just a matter of time before something nasty gets moved into that illicit pipeline and comes into the country. And then finally, let's think about their reach. What is the reach of ISIS, right? What is their reach? It's unprecedented once again. They're able to get into marginalized communities all over the world and not only establish a support base, but to launch from there. They've established safe havens, guys, in Western Europe that look like Iraq and Afghanistan. This last Egyptian airliner that went down, that was all launched, from a safe haven in Western Europe. Brussels, same thing. Paris, same thing. These guys actually have no-go zones in Western Europe where the police won't even go. They've been, for decades now, they've been establishing their presence there, not just ISIS, but Al-Qaeda and other groups. And basically what they do is they operate in neighborhoods and communities that are marginalized from the government. And the more ISIS can spin this narrative of Islam versus the West, Islam versus Christianity, where do you think the Islamic folks are going to lean? Which direction do you think they're going to lean? Towards the government, the democracy, or towards the folks that can keep them safe through their own eyes? So this division between Islam and the West, the more Donald Trump talks about how we should ban Muslims from the United States, guess what he's doing? He's actually marginalizing and pushing the Islamic population right into the waiting arms of ISIS. He's literally feeding ISIS's narrative. So the capacity of ISIS to leverage marginalized communities for their own ill is manifested and is being borne out every day. They've done it in Brussels. They've done it in Paris. They did it with the bombing of the Egyptian airliner. They did it in San Bernardino. And just now, they did it in Orlando. They're leveraging communities that are marginalized and pissed off at the government of that country, and they're exploiting it from the bottom up. They're coming in local. And their reach and their ability to do that is growing every day. So these guys have tremendous capacity. Now, let me go back to their will one more time that I've laid out their capacity for you. These guys, they want us, as part of their prophecy, we need to be the ticked off enemy that they crave. They have to have the 80 banners fighting in Dabiq, Syria for the prophecy to come true. We are a necessary player in this prophecy. And again, this isn't theory. They're ideologically committed to this all the way up to their senior caliph, Baghdadi. And so they need us deployed, pissed off, 9/12, 2001 style, with banners all over the United States, yellow ribbons on trees, C-17 planes lifting off with our young men and women, lock, stock, and barrel by the hundreds of thousands into Syria and Iraq. That is their end game. That's what they want. They're not scared of boots on the ground. They want boots on the ground because it's the only way they can realize their prophecy. Now, with that in mind, knowing that's what they want, they'll tell you that in the video that you watched. They say, bring it on at the end. No respite. Bring it on. The question is not whether or not ISIS can govern the caliphate or whether they can rule Iraq or Syria. The question is not even whether or not ISIS is relevant globally. The question is this: if ISIS is so determined to draw us in as a pissed off, callous enemy that deploys hundreds of thousands of young men and women to Iraq and Syria to fulfill their prophecy. If that's what they need, what level do you think they'll go to in the United States to make that come true? Why do you think they set people on fire? Why do you think they cut heads off? ISIS practices not terrorism, but horrorism. This is what my friend Dave at the CIA calls it. Terrorism is the application of violence to achieve social control against the civilian population, or excuse me, to achieve a political outcome. Horrorism is the application of horrific violence to achieve social control, local paralysis. It's exactly what the Nazis did. These guys they want you to think they're in your backyard. They want you to think that after they shoot up a bar in Orlando, that they're literally hiding in the bushes, waiting for your kids to come out on the swing set. That's very different than Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda wants you to watch the towers fall on CNN. They want you to watch the coal burn over in Yemen on Fox News. ISIS, they want you looking out your blinds through your shutters to wonder if they're in the backyard or if they're already in the house. That's how ISIS operates. So if you're asking yourself, what does this have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. Orlando, San Bernardino, Chattanooga. Do those sound like, large target sets for a terror organization? They're the last 3 target sets that ISIS has chosen in the United States. They're all about local. They're all about social control. They're all about local paralysis. Because they know if they can strike us there, if they can get inside our heads, if they can get inside the heads of our moms and our grandmothers and our dads, if they can get us to take our guns and start shooting up mosques, that eventually the flags are going to come out on the balconies, the yellow ribbons are going to go up on the trees, and we're all going to deploy lock, stock, and barrel, 2001 style, right into the prophecy and the manufactured holy war that they've set. It's the biggest bait and switch in history, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. I talk about it in chapter 1 of my book. I think it's the most heavily resourced analysis out there. No one's listening to it, but I'm telling you, if you just watch it unfold, it's exactly how it's going. But that's the will and capacity piece that we have to understand, guys. They want us in the fight. They want us ticked off. They want us angry. And that's why they keep poking us in the eye. They're not going to go away. They're not scared of bombing or boots on the ground. This is how they're going to play it. So we got to understand that going in as citizens, that if we're not careful and we over-index the way that many of the candidates are doing right now, well, I'd bomb the hell out of them. Well, I'd ban all Muslims. Guess what? You're playing right into their hands. You're playing right into their hands, and this is what we've been doing for 15 years, and it hasn't worked. But what I've laid out for you basically is ISIS's will, and it's their capacity. There's a couple other things, just one other thing I want to say about that. That we should know about ISIS is they follow this thing called hijra, and it basically means, it's Arabic for stealth jihad. It's how they are able to get into countries where they can't simply swing the sword and get their way in there, like Western Europe, Great Britain, Paris, North Africa, not so much North Africa, United States. They use the existing political system, the existing immigration system, to basically work within that structure and infiltrate legally, and then embed themselves in marginalized communities and second-generation diasporas from all of these countries. It's how they establish their presence. It's how they establish their safe haven. And guess what else? If you say anything about it as a police officer, if you question someone on that, if you're putting a mosque under surveillance, if you go on the news as a political figure, you're going to have Muslim Brotherhood and other spokesmen who are working as political operatives in the legal sense to basically jam you up, call you out, put you out there as a racist, or censor you on Facebook, whatever they need to do to jam you up and create space for their operatives to move. It's the oldest trick in the book in guerrilla warfare. You have operatives that are operating subversively below the waterline, but then you have political operatives that use the existing structure to immigrate, to create blockages and log jams so that, political figures can't act, police authorities can't act, and these guys just get all the operating space they need. That's happening right in front of us. And again, the political correctness and all of that stuff is what jams it up. So Hijra, Hijra, Google it, look it up. They've actually declared this in their fatwas to their people. It works very well, and it's how they've established their presence in Western Europe through Hijra or stealth jihad. If you want to know how they're going to get their presence in the United States, just look at Western Europe. Western Europe is the United States in 3 years. So take a close look. Look at, we should be pulling apart how it went wrong in Western Europe and learning from it. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we demand that as citizens of our political figures on both sides of the aisle. Let me look at my child's menu a second and see how we've done here. We've covered a lot of ground. My goodness. Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about the effects that ISIS wants tonight. This is what ISIS wanted to achieve by this attack, and you tell me how you think they did. They want to demonstrate that they're relevant across the globe and that they have unprecedented reach into the deepest heart of America. How do you think they did? They want to demonstrate this to their donors. They want to demonstrate this to potential recruits. They want to demonstrate this to their followers. They want to demonstrate this to their enemy. That's you. They want you scared. They want you locally paralyzed. They want social control over how you operate. Another effect is they want you ticked off. They want us mad as a nation, mad enough that we would deploy our children into a very similar deployment scenario that we saw after 9/11. That's what they want. So how are we doing there? They're probably not quite there yet, which means it's going to be a long summer, boys and girls. They're going to keep punching us in the eye until they get what they want on that one. That's a big one because that is the manifestation of the prophecy, and it has to be realized. So they're going to keep punching us in the eye until we come after them. Now, the other question you should ask yourself is, what do you think they could do to us that would absolutely cause us to have a visceral emotional reaction? Who do you think they could target, Chad?
Yeah, their schools. They go after the kids who will freak out.
It's the kids. They're going to come for the kids. They've already demonstrated that in Peshawar, Pakistan, and that's where they always test this stuff out, and that's what they're going to do. The more we utilize this political correctness, the more we muzzle ourselves and don't allow pragmatic, non-partisan speech, the more we create operating space for these guys to do that. That's where they're going to go next. Or some kind of nasty attack on infrastructure. They want to have a clear division between Islam and the West. They want to have a clear division between Islam and Christianity, because if they can do that, they create safe haven for them to operate in within those marginalized communities. How do you think they're doing now? They're doing really good. Donald Trump's helping them a lot. He's feeding the narrative left and right. So yeah. That's the effects they want right now. They want to demonstrate global relevance and the ability to reach anywhere they want. They want to have social control over us through local paralysis. They want us pissed off and looking to deploy into the Middle East. And they want a large division between Islam and the West because that feeds their purposes. It feeds their narrative. So ask yourself how that's going. How are they doing? They're doing quite well. The only thing they really haven't quite achieved yet is getting us mad enough to go lock, stock, and barrel into Syria and Iraq. But that's okay. They'll just keep coming because we're making it so easy for them to do. And that's the way it's going to play, guys. I wish it was differently. That's their plan. It's not a secret. They've told us exactly what they're doing. It's just that most of our folks that are doing the analysis can't talk about it for whatever reason on the mainstream media in 2-minute sound bites. But that's the deal. That's what's really going on below the waterline. And that's where it's at. What I'm going to do now is that the next couple of days, I'm going to try to find a way to get to you guys. We're going to take a look at ourselves. Now that we've evaluated the enemy and we know more about them, you guys now know more about ISIS probably than most of the friggin' bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And that's a good thing. An informed populace is the best thing out there, man. When I see that look on Summer Tucker's face right now, I'm like, ooh, we're getting somewhere now because people are informed. People know what's going on. And it's not the 8-foot boogeyman in the corner. We start to see these people for who they are and what they are. And we start to recognize that a lot of the vulnerabilities that these guys have is the horrific social control they actually put on their own people. They've killed more Muslims than any religion in the world. ISIS has. They treat locals horribly. They treat them horribly in the United States. They treat them horribly abroad. There are lots of opportunities to beat these guys, but we've got to look at the enemy for who they are and not try to tailor it, not try to change it, not try to sugarcoat it, but for who they are. And what I've told you in an unabashed fashion tonight very quickly is who they are. The podcast that's coming up tomorrow goes even deeper. So and it gives you more resources, but that's where I'm going to take it from here. I want you guys to check out the podcast tomorrow. listen to that thing at your own on your own timeline. The resources are there also, but I will just tell you, the resources are No Respite, the Google video. You can also Google what ISIS wants. That's in The Economist. It's a good article by an embedded reporter that actually spent time with ISIS. The ISIS Apocalypse is the best book that I've seen out there that describes the ideological commitment of these guys and how they're different from Al-Qaeda. And then my book, Game Changers, and that's not a shameless plug. The proceeds actually go back to our nonprofit Mission America. And the first 3 chapters of the book, I actually break down this bait and switch that's happening with violent extremists and how they're trying to draw us in, and how we can see that coming, and how we can actually position ourselves not to do that, and to actually go in a more thoughtful, focused, efficient way and defeat these guys where they're most critically vulnerable. So those are things you can do right now. You can go to therealmissionamerica.org and you can check out a ton of content there. You can go to themannupreport.com. All of the media stuff that I've done, radio, podcast, video, it's all repurposed right there. You can surf through that stuff, and there's all kinds of stuff to help you get smarter on this. Talk to people, learn, get informed. Don't take your news and your analysis from the mainstream media or the cable media. They suck. They're giving you 2 to 4 minute sound bites to keep you spun up, to keep you really misinformed. And frankly, the pundits on there and the talking heads are not getting it done. They're woefully ill-equipped to talk about this problem set because they haven't heard the crack of a round lately, and they don't know the realities of what's going on with these guys. So I encourage you to take those resources, dive in right now, talk to your kids about this thing, because they've got questions, guys. They're seeing this stuff, and we got to be able to talk to our children about this. I mean, obviously with certain ages, but have a talk with your kids about this and help them understand that the best thing we can do about this thing is to get smart on it, to understand this enemy, and to stand together and not split. Don't let the political operatives split us. Don't let political correctness split us. And don't let overreaction emotionally split us like what Donald Trump's doing. That's not helpful either. We're going to talk all about that on my next broadcast when we take a look at ourselves. But I'm going to pause there, guys. I've gone pretty hard and heavy, and I think I'm about to pass out. So I'll pause and see if you guys have any comments.
I got one question for you.
Sure.
That was incredible. Now, that contract that was circling, is that making an impact?
Yes. It's getting there. It's called the Contract to Protect America, Summer.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. And we would love to get folks to check that out. If you go to contracttoprotectamerica.org, and then also we'll get Chad, Todd Day posted a link last night on my Facebook page. If you go there and subscribe, you can go right to the link. The Contract to Protect America is basically a 10-point contract by practitioners like us who've been fighting this enemy for years. It's a contract with us, the American people, and our politicians to start taking this threat seriously, to start calling our enemy by name, to realize this is a nonpartisan issue, to realize that our men and women who've been, some of our men and women have deployed 10 or 11 times in this war. Their families are broken and strained, and we just keep sending them over and over and over, and with no strategy, no policy, no understanding of who this enemy is. What I've laid out for you guys tonight, I guarantee you there isn't a politician in Washington, D.C. that has a fraction of the technical competence that you guys now have on this enemy. And so, that contract is about that. It's about getting as many signatures as we can and demanding that our politicians in this election year start taking this seriously, and that they get off their ass and start learning about this fight in the right way so that they can be relevant. Because right now, all they're doing are emotional responses to play to the crowd. And you know what? That's just getting more of our men and women killed, and it's putting our children at risk.
Yeah, I would say if everybody on this starts to share it with their tribe, share this conversation, because Matt Shanky, I think I'm pronouncing it right, he just said, and I'd have to agree with him, this is the clearest explanation I've ever heard of this. There's no fluff on this. There's no bending one direction or the other, and there's no this is a gun thing, or this is a gay thing, or this is homegrown violence. It's clear cut dry is what this is. So if you share this with your tribe, just one person at a time. I mean, this can get the actual word out. And he will go into it. You're right. He's right about his book, Game Changers. It's not a shameless plug. Those first 3 chapters will make you sit back. It was someone involved in it during, especially that time frame, make you sit back and think, damn, we really dicked that one away, you know? So we can change this. We can change the way we approach this. So
you know, we absolutely can, Chad. And if you're wondering what my agenda is, why is Scott doing this instead of eating crab legs inside right now? Because the little boy that's in there eating crab legs waiting on me, you know, it's his turn in the breach. He's going in now. My son is going in the Army now. And he's going to go fight the war I didn't finish. And let me tell you something, as a daddy, that ain't a real good place to be. Right? And that's all I can say, you know, is my kid is going to have to go execute whatever you call this thing. And I'm not even going to call it a strategy. I'm not even going to call it a policy. And our kids deserve better. You know, and our families deserve better. And not only that, it's putting us more at risk at home. It's putting us more at risk. And if you just take what I've given you, just ponder on it tonight, think about it, and then watch what's coming across the media tomorrow and what the explanations are, and ask yourself, if ISIS is 1/8 as ideologically committed as what I've described to you, and the absolute professionalism in which this guy created the largest mass murder in American history, one man that took his orders from the internet, does it really matter if he's self-radicalized or not? Does it really matter? You know, and is this something we're willing to live with in the rest of our lives? And I'm not. So, you know, that's my agenda on it. And honestly, you know, I think it's up to us, guys. Nobody else is coming. It's this election year. We're going to have to demand it. We're going to have to work it from the bottom up. But here's the good news. I mean, everything in my book, Game Changers, the policy that we put in place for about 3 years that was actually working at a local level and was mobilizing tribes and clans to fight these guys in Afghanistan and for a short period in Iraq, it was working. And you know where that came from? It came from a couple of us in a bar drawing this thing out on a napkin and pushing it from the bottom up. I am an absolute believer as a Green Beret in the power of people that are on this call to stand up and say, you know what, nobody else is coming, fine, I'll do it. We'll do it, and we'll demand it. And I look at the tribes that the Tuckers have built and what you guys have built. There's no reason that we can't push this thing into the fray and into the mainstream. I'll use my platform on national media, but I need some help, or we're going to see more of these throughout the summer and certainly into our kids' lives. And I just don't want to hand it to them like that, guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Scott, we want you to get back in there with your son and celebrate. But we appreciate your time, and we're going to push this out. You guys, everybody that's on here, I'll have this up and posted on Facebook with a link tomorrow, and then you can grab it and get it out any way that you can to your tribe, because awareness, in my opinion, like you said, Scott, is the first step, and then we all need to step in. You know what I mean? That time you talk about that everybody wants to step back, this is our time to step in.
That's it.
So.
That's it, guys. And I'll try to answer any questions that come up over Facebook tomorrow. But God bless you guys. Love you guys. And I'll see you on the high ground.
Love you.
See you, Scott.
See ya.